Welcome to the third lesson, where we will explore the mode of parametric 3D modeling. Unlike the direct modeling covered in the previous lesson, working with parametrics takes more time, but in return offers much more possibilities for creating, editing, and modifying 3D objects. For better comprehension, I recommend repeating the demonstrated steps along with me. Don't hesitate to pause if you need more time. An important part of parametric modeling is sketches. To understand how this works, in the 3D Tools tab, let's switch to the Parametric Modeling mode and click on the Add Sketch command. Unlike 2D drafting, to create a sketch we need to choose a plane in which it will reside. Expand the GCS folder in the 3D history when hovering the mouse over a plane and any flat surface it will highlight in green. Let's create a sketch in the ZX plane. After selecting a plane for the sketch, the screen automatically sets up perpendicular to this plane. And instead of 3D tools, the command panel displays operations for drawing and editing. Let's create a rectangle of arbitrary size. Initially, our rectangle already has constraints. Let's pay attention to the commands in the Constraints field. You can disable the automatic applying of constraints when creating objects if you expand the menu under the Parameters Manager command and choose Constraint Settings. In this dialog box, you can disable or enable the necessary parameters for automatically applying constraints. Existing constraints can be removed if you expand the menu again and choose Delete Constraints. Click on all the constraints that need to be removed, and finally confirm by pressing Enter. Now all constraints are removed. In parametric modeling, dimensions are related to constraints for a reason. Let's apply dimensions to our rectangle. Select the linear dimension. Click on the endpoints of the segment. And a window appears with the dimensions label and its value. Editing this dimension automatically changes the geometry of our rectangle. This can be avoided by adding constraints to the sketch. For example, set the width to 50. You can set the necessary parameters in the Constraint Settings dialog box, or you can add constraints independently, for example, perpendicularity, horizontality, or parallelism. Let's delete all constraints. Now we add constraints using the Auto Constrain command. For this, expand the Constraints menu and select Auto Constrain. After that, select all objects on which we want to apply geometric constraints and press Enter. As we can see, the necessary constraints appeared automatically. Set the second dimension of the rectangle to 30 mm. Select the linear dimension. Choose the side and set it to 30. Now our rectangle is fully defined. To fully define this sketch, it remains to set the position of our rectangle relative to the 0 coordinate point. In this demonstration, it is not needed, but we strongly recommend working with fully defined sketches in 3D modeling, as this helps to avoid many problems with refreshing geometry and software errors associated with the insufficient definiteness of sketches. The next step is to add a circle in the center. Click on the circle. Place it anywhere, and set the distance to the rectangle sides to 25 and 15. Now the circle is centered within the rectangle. What if we change the length or width of the rectangle? For example, change the side length to 45. The distance to the circle's center remains unchanged, and now it is offset from the center. Here begins the magic of parametrics. Let's define the dimensions of the circle's center not as numbers, but as a dependency. Double-click on the dimension. Indicate that our vertical dimension equals d2 divided by 2. OK. And also set the second dimension equal to d1 divided by 2. Now our dimensions are defined in terms of a ratio. And no matter how the width or length of the rectangle changes, the circle will always be in the center. For instance, change the height to 70 and length to 30. All constraints can be viewed in the Parameter Manager. Here the names of constraints, their values, and assigned expressions are displayed, as in the case with the center of the circle. Here, if necessary, they can also be edited. To show and hide created constraints, select Show or Hide Constraints from the Constraints group in the Command Manager. At the end of creating any sketch, we need to choose the End Editing option, after which the sketch appears in the 3D history. If you have a sketch made with drawing tools, for example, now we will create one, then for its display in the construction history and the possibility of constructing parametric objects based on it, you need to select all its elements. Click on the arc, and in the 3D Tools tab, select the Add Sketch option. This sketch editing menu opens, where we can set the sizes of constraints and finish editing. As we can see, this sketch has appeared in the construction history, and now we can build any object based on it. This concludes the first part of the lesson on parametric modeling. You can practice creating 2D sketches, and when you're ready, move on to the next part of the lesson.